A visit to former Vice President and six-time presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar has sent rumor mills spinning. Well, last week, key members of the defunct Congress for Progressive Change, CPC, met with Atiku at his home in the capital. In the Facebook post, Atiku said they visited him to express support for his mission to rescue Nigeria from what he called the stranglehold of the incompetent APC-led administration. There is a loss at stake here for both Tinubu and Atiku. Once regarded as the backbone of Buhari's northern power base, the CPC was key in finally winning Buhari the presidency after 3 tries. Already CPC chieftains, including former governors of Kaduna and Rivers State, Nasir El-Rufai and Rotimi Amechi, have teamed up with Atiku against Tinubu's re-election bid in 2027. Some of the members have denied the switch, saying Tinubu still holds the loyalty of the bloc. I'm now joined by a prominent member of the defunct CPC and former acting national secretary of the APC, Waziri Bulama. Glad to have you join me on
Thanks.
Prime Time. I want you to listen to a statement from ex-CPC state chairman, who held a meeting with Waziri. Incidentally, you answer the same name with former President Waziri, his title anyway, Waziri Adamawa, in his residence. He says, bring it out, make it visible. Politics does not operate in a corner. Bring your politics out. That is essentially what we are here to emphasize. We're the true followers of Buhari, and we are here today, sir. That's to Atiku. The CPC bloc is intact. What do you make of that statement? That's a very confident statement from these ex-CPC state chairman.
The key spokesman of the group that met the Waziri of Adamawa, Waziri was chairman of the defunct CPC in Adamawa State, while he rallied a few guys who were, leaders of the party with him, before the dissolution of the CPC in 2013, and they went and saw Waziri Adamawa, Atiku Abubakar. But you must also, I'm sure you're also aware that within the past, 3 or 4 weeks, the hub of the political family of President Muhammadu Buhari, led by Senator Tanko Almakura, he rallied the leadership of the defunct CPC to visit President Bulama Tinubu to, of course, thank him for the state burial he granted our late leader, President Muhammadu Buhari. So these people, of course, there are just a few of them who were, chairmen of the defunct CPC. You remember that the CPC as a party, got dissolved. The entire structure of the party was dissolved along with the ACN and other parties in 2013 to fuse and, leading to the emergence of the APC. So the CPC its history does not exist at all. The reason why, for instance, in the last 2 or 3 months, we rallied and came together under Senator Tanko Almakura was to respond to the false and mischievous attempt, by a few, colleagues, former colleagues of ours, who wanted to disrupt, and divide the APC by, calling the name, CPC. But the CPC does no longer exist. But even as at then, when they started this, ruinous, futile effort, President Muhammadu Buhari himself was alive. He came out and said that his loyalty, his commitment, his convictions remain with the APC. So that seals the issue. So there is no actually CPC anymore again. The CPC as a party had been dissolved. What exists now is APC, and we have moved on. 12 years, and we have progressed, and quite a lot has taken place. Because in 2013, the structure of the CPC that came and diffused into the APC was made up of the party structure. It was made up of National Assembly members, 34 House of Representative members, and 6 senators, plus a governor, as well as many, House of Assembly members and others that all, dissolved their membership and fused into the APC. So the CPC as a party no longer exists. CPC is history. What we have today is APC and all the ideals, all the aspirations, all the commitments and the undertakings of the defined CPC had been, absorbed by the APC.
Yeah. It's still being called a bloc within the APC. Collapsed. The bloc is still there. I mean, you can say, yeah, the party does not exist, but that's the bloc. Even the Al-Makura you're calling now went as a bloc. Now, did you go with them to that visit?
To the president?
Yeah.
Of course I was there.
Okay, you went. So,
yes.
The Speaker of the House told the president that the bloc is not fragmented or estranged, as it were, insisting that more than 90% of CPC's pioneer leaders remain active and loyal. He's definitely pulling a wool over the president's eyes. That's not the truth.
No, what the speaker meant by that statement is that all of us that came from the different parties, we are all part of the APC. We are loyal, members of the APC, and we will campaign for the APC. That is what he meant. It's just like saying, okay, I'm from Borno State or you're from Rivers State, I'll campaign for so-so party. It doesn't mean that your identity matters. No, the important thing is the party, the APC, which is a national, broad-based, issue-based, ideological party. That is where we are now.
Okay, so what do you make of, there's also a forum. This is quite interesting.
Well,
the way politicians play politics. And we here try to get information from the politicians and maybe poke you a little bit. A forum of state chairman of the defunct CPC who said they support the president, they're crying out against what they call marginalization in APC, especially, for example, in the appointment of national chairman over the years. It's been ACN all the way, except when Adamu became the chairman, and they call that tokenism. They raised this in a meeting. So what do you make of even this group now who are crying out for marginalization in APC?
You see, the internal dynamics, in the parties, produces, a number of very interesting issues.
Scenarios, yes.
Scenarios, indeed. The idea of lack of reward, respect, regard, patronage, true and false, it's always a cry within political parties. You must understand that this our democracy, even though it's 25, 26 years old today, it's an emerging, nascent democracy.
We keep using this phrase, emerging, nascent.
Oh, indeed. Because you see, because the parties, ought to be very firm, mature institutions. We have not yet gone to that level. There's no doubt about that. The parties are supposed to be strong corporate structures, guided by ideologies, guided by certain culture of doing things, and so we have not gone into that strong corporate institutions as they're supposed to be. So there is a great deal of struggle by members for relevance, for recognition. So this cry about marginalization is not just from elements within the old CPC, but even the SEN as well as the ANPP, they are all crying of one form of marginalization or another. Yeah. And our party leadership, let me add, they are doing their best to address these issues.
Okay, well, if you say so. By the way, while we are talking about this, the wind, that's what I call it, of factions blowing like the storm, Regasa, that we're talking about in Asia. I was talking about it today. Almost all the parties, Waziri, have crisis and factions, including the CPC bloc now that we're talking about. So apparently from what we're discussing, You belong to the faction of Al-Makura. Why, and it's so pronounced this time around, why these factions, and what does it do for our democracy, really?
You see, the reason why we have these divisions and squabbles and schisms in the parties is largely because we have failed collectively. I'm talking of the entire political elite now.
Yep.
And you asked me a professional question,
Yep.
and I'm honestly giving you this answer because it affects all the parties. The parties have not yet developed, have not been developed into ideological, hubs.
Except maybe the ruling party.
The ruling party too is also struggling because oftentimes you may hear,
because the cry is that fingers are being pointed at the ruling party for sowing the seeds of discord in these other parties.
No, you see, the issue is the ruling party itself is struggling to survive and stay united because these pressures and tensions are there even in the ruling party, because you see these parties are supposed to be developed into strong institutions with processes, systems, and methods of doing things that are transparent, that are fair, that are just, that would also unite and cohere people around certain values and beliefs, and people would pursue that those goals in the interest of the nation by keeping together, because we all come representing the diversity of our country, different backgrounds, regions, as religions, as well as tribes. But under when you come into a political party, you kind of leave all these local identities and become a member of a political party. So in a party like this national institution, you struggle to ensure that this party becomes transparent, open, with systems and processes that are equal and open. So that is actually a struggle that all our parties are going through. And indeed, the sluggish way in which we are handling this issue of making our parties fully institutional is really affecting the quality of our democracy. Look, the biggest elephant in the room at the moment, let me even tell you, is voter apathy. Because the last presidential election in 2023, out of 94 million registered voters, only 26 million came out to vote.
The elite is being blamed for that, partly.
Well, the point is this, it shows that people have cold attitude towards the entire democratic process, not just one party or any party, but the elites were not interested in voting. And knowing fully too, that voting in a general election is like a referendum on the democratic system itself. That is an issue that all the elites, all the parties ought to interrogate to improve their image in the eyes of the Nigerian public, to improve the trust gap that exists between citizens and the political class.
Yeah, the trust gap, before I go to this, the trust gap here is that politicians have left or are leaving governance, issues of governance, real issues of governance, and are just politicking. And so people wonder, why do I need to vote? And then the question of the electoral system or the electoral umpire not handling elections the way they ought to be handled, and politicians circumventing the system.
What the problems, this and many other problems that those of us, who are insiders know, that afflict, our practice of democracy are largely product of the diversity, of our country. Number two, the young age of this democracy, because, previous attempts at living in a democratic system, failed severally. Our first attempt from 1960 was for only 6 years.
Yep.
The military intervened. And the second attempt was only for 4 years, 1979 to 83. It failed. Look, over half of the period of our post-independence life in Nigeria was ruled by the military. We have been struggling to build a nation. Even by 1999, when the military decided to hand over, Nigerians had to look for a leader who had national experience and institutional leader like Obasanjo to take over the country, who ruled, literally had, ruled like the country from 1999 to 2015. Because that PDP era was largely, his image loomed large, Then we had to find, a Buhari, a general, a former head of state with national experience, who is capable, who is trusted by all Nigerians to hold this country together, which he did. Both Obasanjo as well as President Obasanjo and President Buhari, you cannot fault them for that because they held the country together. Now the challenge of the political system, before the political elite in Nigeria, has always been that, how do you ensure that the country stays together?
Yeah,
how do you build institutions that would answer, that would respond to this national need? Yeah, that has been the challenge.
Talking about holding the country together, see what Hakeem Baba Ahmed says. He says no politician can win the presidency without the North, and the North will soon decide who they will vote for, that the present administration is not treating the North well. What do you make of that?
With all due respect, our senior brother Hakeem Baba, Ahmed is a well-known technocrat, and but the point is this: neither would a northerner win election without the support of other parts of the country. Buhari, we followed Buhari into 3 successive presidential elections. He couldn't make it, even though Buhari was an institutional leader, a former head of state, a huge Nigerian. And of course, look, the politics behind Buhari was largely ideological, because the people who packaged that movement under Buhari that garnered the 12 million votes infused in that struggle.
You've even mentioned what I was going to talk about.
Oh yeah,
because,
indeed.
Because Mustafa said,
let me land here.
Okay.
Because that struggle, these 12 million votes that Buhari, had continuously and successfully garnered, in 3 presidential elections, bringing it into the 4th, was largely, driven by, it was ideological. Because you see, the people who packaged that thinking, the issues that Buhari as Arrowhead led was largely ideological, was to promote, political stability of the country, to promote transparency and accountability in governance and so on and so forth. And Buhari was, promoted as a symbol of somebody who had lived a very austere life, who had served the country selflessly, who was very brave and courageous, that if you vote for this man, you bring Nigeria of your dream, a country that is accountable, a country that is free of corruption, a country that would be very brave, that would be, peaceful and equal to everybody and so on. So it was an ideological movement that connected, with the citizens of the country, not just the North, but all over. But however, you see, the 3 campaigns that he led was largely limited by geography. So eventually in 2012, 2013, we had to, get like-minded, reach out to like-minded Nigerians to form a broad-based national party, the APC, to found the APC.
Now, with Al-Makura, Masari, Farouk Aliyu, Ahmed Lawan on one side of the divide of CPC, Babachir Lawal, Malami, El-Rufai, Amechi. Did I put Mustafa there? Why is Mustafa there? Mustafa is, I guess, is with these people.
Who is Mustafa? Which Mustafa?
Al-Mustafa.
No, Mustafa is not part of the CPC or the APC.
Oh, the CPC, okay. Well, Babachir Lawal, Malami, El-Rufai, Amechi. On the other hand, I think Mustafa was going to talk about the votes. That's why I was going to go to them. This, Waziri, you will admit, is a huge dent, which won't bode well with the president retaining his seat in 2017. So when Al-Makura promises to mobilize massively for Tinubu come 2027, the speaker saying the CPC bloc remains intact, is your group not promising the president water in a waterless house?
You know what? This entire movement and the exercise to rally, leaders of the defunct CPC was entirely symbolic, was to counter the mischievous attempt to divide the APC by people who claimed there is APC. But in practical terms, there is no substantial force behind this movement, because what exists is APC with the structure of APC all over the country. Right now, APC has president, it has leadership in the National Assembly, it has governors in 24 states. This is the team that will work for the APC and all the candidates of the APC in all elections. Yeah, so the idea about there's no, see, the thing is, all of us that came together, you know, you must understand, I just don't want to repeat myself, but actually what we did was symbolic. We are part of APC.
Yeah, I know, we understand that. But the point is,
yes,
if we think the bloc, a group, what do you call it now? Within the bloc, some are complaining, some are dissatisfied, they could pull out. And that's what I'm talking about. But when Makura and the House Speaker is promising the President heaven and earth with this separation, I mean, they're not telling the President.
Okay, you know, when you say pulling out that would really hurt the party, that are pulling out of that are substantial.
So you think this one is not substantial?
Of course, you see an individual, you know, who has no parties, who is not part of a party, he is not party chairman today. He is not in the National Assembly. He is not a governor. If he pulls out, this is an individual working out of the party.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's why I'm saying that all the noise on both sides is symbolic. You understand? We say, look, these guys...
Because APC is what matters.
APC is what matters. APC is what matters. There is no CPC. Again.
Now, Waziri, the president's visit to Buhari's wife and his promise to build a Buhari house is seen in some quarters as a subtle way of, let me not use the word buy, but say galvanizing Buhari followers. But how far can that go in swaying the voters from the north and pacifying their anger against his administration?
You see, governance is a dynamic issue. The president was elected for a 4-year mandate. And now he is implementing policies, you know, throughout the country.
That are hurting Nigerians.
He knows it too. Because when he took over the country, the economy was on the verge of collapse. It was on a kind of a spiral, you know, a kind of Venezuela situation or a Zambia situation, where the Naira was, you know, was really becoming worthless.
The electorate are getting fed up.
You will continue. He knows it is bad, but he said he had to take these difficult decisions to correct it. It's just like somebody who has a wound. You know, you have to apply iodine and other things, you understand, to get cured. That's what is happening. Everybody knows, the president knows, every one of us knows that Nigerians are struggling, are suffering, are carrying, you know, heavy burden. You know, the cost of living is really beyond the middle class like you and me and others. Who does not know? But the president is actually working hard. All the governors, they're also working hard to make sure that there is a turnaround. That is what is happening now.
Yeah, good you said that, and you're being frank about it. But now I have this opportunity. I always miss to ask this question. Two policies that turn Nigeria upside down, fuel subsidy and then the exchange, Naira exchange. I've always asked the question. I don't know whether I'm coming from the moon, you know. When the president, you could say he's behind, but when the president says some people were reaping Nigeria, that's talking about fuel subsidy, one wonders, were these people ghosts that couldn't be captured and dealt with, that every time the powers that be have to fall back on the electorate and they get punished for the things they did not do? Couldn't we catch these people, get these people, and then the law works against them, and then somehow we don't have to do this hasty, what do you call it, subsidy removed?
You know, we must understand the challenges of governance in this country. You know, I'm on the same plate with you on this issue. There are so many crimes committed against this country, and people are getting away with it. People are stealing oil, are they not?
Yeah.
People are mining illegally and taking gold and other resources away, are they not?
Yeah.
Bandits are stealing farm produce, rustling cattle, and stealing people and demanding ransom, and they're getting away with it, are they not?
You're correct.
Look, there are so many things. I can count so many of it. These are all governance issues, and the government, based on the resources available to it, based on the whatever governmental machinery and institutions available to it, they are fighting hard to put an end to all sorts of crimes. But clearly, this fuel subsidy issue, was one area where cheap money, was just going away. That had to be stopped. And the other one is the dual exchange rate that existed, where people actually who had connection got allocation and went and sold to actual people in need, businessmen, manufacturers, and others. That had stopped. These were clear things that the president could, with the rule of thumb, with one action he was able to stop. But many others are going on. I come from Borno State. We are literally under siege for 15 years. Maiduguri, my beloved city, is under curfew for 15 years today. Is it believable?
What was the president doing about it? I mean, that's why that part of the reason the North are crying too.
See, there are governance challenges in the country. So you must, at the end of the day, see what the government is doing and see these problems and appreciate, how much effort the government has made and how much is remaining of these problems.
Some will tell you that they didn't elect the presidents to make effort. They elected him to solve problems. The president must be worried about Buhari's demise and how it is going to impact him in the election 2027. Is he worried?
Well, you know what? Even I would say yes, he's worried. But the point is that the president has done enough to honor President Buhari. He led a state burial for him. He mourned deeply. In fact, we went to the villa to even condole him, because Buhari, they used to refer to themselves as friends and political partners. The two of them aligned to bring about the APC, which put an end to identity politics of tribe, politics of region, politics of religion in this country, which won 3 successive presidential elections, which made history in this country. The two of them are partners. But the point is this: the big challenge for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and our party leaders today is how to rediscover that ideological thinking, that ideological strand that mobilized 20 million votes. How they link up, with the intellectual, with the intelligentsia in the country, workers, scholars, technocrats, and all sorts of discerning Nigerians who mobilized, who sacrificed and work hard to fund and brought about that 12 million votes. Yeah, that is the real challenge for President Buhari and the APC.
And that's where the real issue is. Just briefly, I'll ask you the last question, and we'll call it. I've enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you.
Because I think you're coming across as being truthful, because politicians always like to play around, Former AGF Abubakar Malami accuses both Al Makura and Bello Masari of supporting the president for personal gain, and that they cannot speak for the bloc. Just on a last note, what do you think of that statement, briefly?
I mean, even because Buhari appointed him as justice minister, who is Malami? Who is Malami, for God's sake? He is in no position. He is no position to speak on anything, on any issue, for anybody.
All right, we'll leave it there. The former acting national secretary of the APC, Waziri, and of course the member of the defunct CPC bloc, Waziri Bulama. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you, bros. Thank you.